In this lesson, we're going to be working on synthetic division. And synthetic division is basically just a different type of division, just like the long division. Synthetic division only works if you are dividing by a binomial, it means two terms, and where the coefficient of x is 1. It does work if the coefficient of x is different from 1, but then it would be a little bit harder. So always try to do synthetic division with a divisor that's a binomial and where the x of the divisor has a coefficient of 1. So how do you set it up? We're going to start with looking at the dividend, and what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to check, are they in descending order of power? This is a power 2, this is a power 1, and this is a power 0 since it's a constant. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a line like that, and we're going to take the coefficient in order. So we're going to take 9, then negative 3, and then 11. So you take the coefficients in order. And then for the divisor, you set it equal to 0. And you can find that x is equal to 6 in this case. So you put the 6 on the outside. So let's review. To set up the synthetic division, you take the coefficients of the dividend in order, 9, negative 3, and 11. You take the divisor, you set it equal to 0, and you find what x is equal to, and that's going to be the number on the outside. This is how you set up the synthetic division. Now to solve it, what you do first is that you move the first number down. You don't multiply it, you just copy it down. And now what you do next is you multiply 6 times 9, and that's going to be a 54, and you put the 54 under the negative 3. After you multiply, you add. Negative 3 plus 54 is a 51. And you do the same steps again. 6 times 51 is 306. You add it to 11, and you get 317. Box the last number because that's always going to be your remainder. So in this case, x minus 6 is not a factor since the remainder is not 0. Now, how do you write this down? Remember, always every time you divide, the degree is going to go down by 1. So the degree in here is going to be power 2. So the degree of my answer is going to go down 1 and become power 1. Okay, so that's going to be x to the power 1, and that's going to be your constant. So your answer is going to be 9x plus 51 plus the remainder over the divisor. Now would be a good time for you to pause the video and try number 2 on your own. Now, as you can see, the coefficient of x is not 1. And remember when we said that every time the coefficient of x is not 1, you have to get rid of that. Now, to get rid of that, you have to multiply or divide everything by 2. So 4 divided by 2 is a 2. 8 divided by 2 is a 4. 10 divided by 2 is a 5. So that would be my new dividend. And my divisor now is going to be x, so 1x, which is an x, and 6 divided by 2 is a 3, and that's going to be my new divisor. Now I can use binomials. Now I can use synthetic division because I have a binomial where the coefficient of x is 1. Now to set it up, remember you have to double check that all the powers or the dividend is in descending order of power. So that's a power 2, power 1, power 0. So I'm going to take the coefficients and put them in order. Now I'm going to take the divisor and set it equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 3. So my x is going to be equal to negative 3, and that's going to be the number that I'm going to put on the outside. Now remember, the first number always goes down. Negative 3 times 2 is a 6. Negative 6. Now when you add these two, you get negative 2. Now again, negative 3 times negative 2 is a 6. Negative 5 plus 6 is a 1. Box that because that's going to be your remainder. Now, since the power of the dividend or the degree of the dividend, the highest power is 2, then my answer will be power of 1. So x power 1, and then the constant. So the final answer is going to be 2x minus 2 plus the remainder over the divisor, which is in this case, the divisor now is x minus 3. It's not 2x plus 6 anymore because this is what we used to divide. Okay? Now that's number 2. Let's move on to number 3. Now again, we put them in descending order of power. So 3, 2, 1, and constant, so that's a power 0. So you take the coefficients, 1, 3, 3, 1 in order. You take the opposite of that, which is negative 1. Now remember, move the first one down. Negative 1 times 1 is a negative 1. You add 3 and negative 1, you get 2. So we always add. So remember, the idea is bring down, multiply, add all the time. 3 plus negative 1 is a 2. Then negative 1 times 2 is going to be a negative 2. Add. And then negative 1 times 1 would be a negative 1. Add, and you get a 0. In this case, my remainder is a 0. Always box the last number. That's your remainder. So my answer, again, is going to go 1 power down. So the dividend has a degree of 3. So my answer will have a degree of 2. So x to the power 2, x to the power 1, and then the constant. So as you can see, the answer also will be in decreasing order or descending order of power. So my final answer is going to be 1x squared, which is x to the power 2, plus 2x to the power 1, which is 2x, plus 1, because that's going to be my constant. And the remainder is 0, so there's no need to write it down. Now let's move on to number 4, and that's going to be our first placeholder. Just like long division, every time you have a dividend, you have to check that it's in descending order of power. So let's double check. Now, this is power 4, power 3, power 1, power 0. So there is an x to the power 2 missing, so you have to put 0x to the power 2. Don't forget that. Placeholder for all the powers that are missing. Now the coefficient is 1, 3, 0, negative 9, and negative 27. So you put them in order, like we did over here. Negative 9, negative 27. You always take the opposite of this number, because if you set it equal to 0, x will be negative 3. So that's the number that's going to be on the outside. Now we solve it the same way. So don't forget, always the numbers has to be in descending order of power. If there's any power that's missing, you replace it by a 0. And that's going to be the placeholder. Now, just like we did before, we bring 1 down. Negative 3 times 1 is a negative 3. If you add these two, 3 and negative 3, that's going to be a 0. Negative 3 times is 0 is a 0. If you add 0 and 0, you get a 0. Negative 3 times 0 is another 0. You add these, you get negative 9. Negative 3 times negative 9 is a 27. You add these two, you get a 0. That's going to be your remainder. Now, like we talked before, this is a power of 4. The degree is power of 4. The degree over here will be power of 3. So this is going to be x to the power 3, x to the power 2, x to the power 1, and then the constant. To write this down, you write 1x to the power 3, which is x to the power 3. 0x to the power 2 is just 0. 0 minus 9. And that would be your answer. Now would be a good time for you to pause the video and try number 5 on your own. Now let's go ahead and try number 5 together. Just like we said that they should be in descending order of power, so that's power 5, and then it jumps to power 2. So we have 2 powers missing. We have a 0x to the power 4 missing, and we have a 0x to the power 3 missing. Now let's check. Power 2, power 1 constant, so we're good. So the coefficients in order are going to be 6, then a 0, then a 0, then negative 3, then 1, then negative 2. So you take the coefficients. You take always the opposite of that, because if you set it equal to 0, x would be 1. Now, like we did before, you bring the first number down. You never multiply the first number. You always bring it down. Then you multiply. 1 times 6 is a 6. Then you add. 1 times 6 is a 6. 0 plus 6 is a 6. 1 times 6 is a 6. Negative 3 plus 6 is a 3. 1 times 3 is a 3. 1 plus 3 is a 4. 1 times 4 is a 4. Negative 2 plus 4 is a 2. Box the last one. That's going to be your remainder. Now, the power of the dividend is to the power 5. So my answer is going to be to the power 4. And as you can see, it will match. There will be a 1 for each one of them. You see that? How the numbers are correct? 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. So the answer is going to be 6x to the power 4 plus 6x to the power 3 plus 6x to the power 2 plus 3x plus 4 plus the remainder over the divisor. In this case, the divisor was x minus 1. And that would be your final answer. Now, the main reason I have a 6 over here, number 6, is because I want you to remember to do synthetic division, you have to have binomial with a coefficient of 1. If it's not coefficient of 1, then synthetic division is not a good method to use. So then maybe long division would be another method for you to use. So I'm not going to do number 6. Remember, synthetic division is best when you divide by binomial with coefficient 1. So if you have, for example, divisor of x minus 2 or x plus 3 or x minus 4 or x plus 1, any binomial where the coefficient of x is 1 would be a good reason for you to use synthetic division. Now that's the end of our lesson. I hope this tutorial was helpful.